Welcome, everyone, to today's conversation, Coaching Beyond the Game, Building the Next Generation of Leaders. I'm thrilled to be moderating this conversation, exploring the powerful intersection of sports, leadership, and equity. This panel today brings together leaders from across the coaching and athletic landscape, spanning youth development, collegiate sports, professional athletics, and strategic consulting. Before we dive in, I'd love for each of you all to introduce yourselves. Please share your name, title, organization, and a brief overview of the work your organization does. Sandi, why don't we start with you?
Okay. My name is Sandi James. I am a current and soon to be retired pro female football player with the D.C.Divas women's tackle football. And I am also the first head coach at Mount St. Mary's University in Maryland.
Wonderful.
For flag football. My apologies.
We got it. Paul, how about you?
Yeah, hi Beth. Hi everyone. My name is Paul Caccamo, and I am the founder and CEO of a national nonprofit organization called Coach Across America. And we are the only national service program that recruits young adults to spend a year as a coach, mostly in communities where sports does not exist because there aren't a lot of coaches. And believe it or not, there's a lot of communities like that across this country. And we're pretty determined to put a coach on the ground in every single one of them.
Great work. Thanks, Paul. Kelsey, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, Kelsey Trainor. I'm a lawyer, producer, writer, and a strategic consultant for Athena Global Advisors, which is a full-service marketing business intelligence firm. Founded the company Invest in Women, which was really about creating more investment in women and women's sports, especially coaches. And fun fact, I did coach D3 college basketball before I went to law school, so got my coaching in there a little bit.
Well, we appreciate your perspective today, Kelsey. And Katie, wrap us up.
Hi guys, my name is Katie Ritchie, former professional player. I played overseas in England and Norway and back and forth in the old pro leagues in America. I run a youth club, so I'm a director of coaching for a local youth club in San Diego. I've coached collegiately, head coach, assistant level, NAIA, NCAA, and I also am the club coach liaison for San Diego Wave, which is the pro women's club in San Diego.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. This should really provide a breadth of perspective for all of us today. Today, we'll examine why coaching is such a critical lever for equity and leadership. We'll look at how intentional coaching can influence the leadership pipeline, how policy and organizational culture can support more inclusive practices, and why investing time on the sidelines can pay dividends in the boardroom. Let's get started. Research shows a powerful link between athletic participation and leadership. 94% of women in the C-suite played sports, and 80% of female executives at Fortune 500 companies report athletic backgrounds. As conversations around the leadership pipeline from youth sports to executive roles gain momentum, why is increasing the presence of women coaches a critical factor in sustaining and strengthening that pipeline?
Let me just start with this. It's harder to be what you cannot see. And so while we've gained a lot in terms of visibility in women in sports professionally and in airtime, we still have a ways to go, but we've gained a lot. I mean, that ninth grade girl who's finishing, here's the bell ring, finishing a day at school and going out to soccer practice is probably going to see a male coach. Because at the youth level and the grassroots level, the vast majority of coaches in this country continue to be men. And I think that poses a challenge as we look at issues like equity, because for young girls to see themselves continuing in sports, seeing a role model, because that's what a coach is, seeing that coach as a leader, seeing that coach as a mentor, and seeing that coach as a woman makes a real difference. And there's studies that actually show that girls who have women coaches stay in sports longer. And we got to think about that. Like a lot of boys who start sports will go all the way through high school. A large number of girls drop out at about 8th or 9th grade, much more than the number of boys dropping out. It's very disproportionate. So what are they missing out by not staying in sports? They're missing out those skills like leadership, like teamwork, like learning how they learn new skills, facing hardship, struggles, losses, competition, healthy competition. And if you think about how those all translate to the workplace, we can understand why those statistics show so many successful women played sports. They learned those values, they took them in, and they carried them not just from the field, but to the corporate environment. And that's why I think we need to build a pipeline of women coaches across our communities in this country.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Paul. Anybody else have a unique perspective on this?
I'll add in. I think that the pipeline is so important because, when you get out of college or, if you have a secondary degree, the first job you have is not CEO, right? Like you're put in positions to be successful. And I think so often we see women, you know, they get the opportunity, they get the chance to coach, whether it's the collegiate or the pro level, but they don't have that experience. And I think that's why the pipeline is so important. For so long, I think a few years ago, 2 of 12 WNBA coaches were women. And I think it might have been like Sue Bird, I forget who had this conversation, but they talked a lot about how the former players who would want to be would want to be coaches in the future didn't really have the opportunity to jump in as assistants or video coordinators after the fact. And so we're starting to see that trend up a bit more, but I think it has to be super intentional that there is a pipeline so that it's not, we can all probably name a number of scenarios where a woman was put in a position where she just wasn't ready for it through no fault of her own. And, we all know that the criticism and the ability to fail, there's a much shorter kind of leash on that.
So not only keeping girls in sports longer through the exposure to female coaches, but expanding the opportunities and access for women to get into coaching as a career, and having that translate both in that sport as well as possibly post that career into the corporate environment.
I have one of the highest demographics of female coaches within my club that I run because I'm trying to create that pathway and give them an opportunity and a platform. But what my mentor has always told me is we have to be so much better than our male counterparts with regards to education, making sure that we're doing all the extra, seeking growth opportunities or any type of things where, if they're going to compare us to our male counterparts, we're not getting the job just based on our gender. It's we are as qualified, if not more qualified and prepared to jump into those same environments and same rooms because whether we like it or not, we are going to be held to this standard. We are going to be looked under a microscope because I think it is shifting, but I mean, I still feel it all the time that you're not as wanted or as accepted as my male coaching counterparts.
I'm so glad you said that because even while I just got the job at the Mount, I have people question my credentials almost daily. And it's from people outside of the school and people within the school. It's like, oh, so what did you do before this? And I'm like, a part of me, like, I'm never rude about it, of course, but a part of me wants to be like, well, what do you do? Where's your credentials? Because it's like, why are you asking me these questions? And I know that my male counterparts did not get asked these questions, at least not as much. So I completely agree with you.
Many executives credit early coaching with shaping their leadership style. What coaching inspired strategies can businesses adopt to build resilient and high performing teams? And how can they positively impact an organizational success and bottom line? Because as we all know, that proof is in the pudding.
I think, I'll speak for myself, but I know many women have a story of in business that they can relate back to sport, right? Even me getting into law school and my conversations with professors and the dean there, because I played sport, I was looked at differently in a more positive way. And so I go back to communication. When you play team sports, it's so important to have communication. You're always getting yelled at, talk on the court, talk on the field. You have to have communication. It has to be clear, as well as lines of what those lines of communication look like. You have to have a feedback loop. I think so often people kind of go through their day and they're really unsure if the work that they're doing is helpful or is on the right track. Whereas, when you're playing a sport, your coach all the time is giving you feedback. Sometimes it's in one direction, sometimes it's in the other, but it's there, and it has to be constructive. And I think the other thing is really embracing failure at any organization. In sport, say basketball, you don't score every time you go down the court. You miss shots, you miss layups, people score on you, and that has to be okay. You have to set up a structure for people to try new things and to innovate. You can't ever have innovation or groundbreaking advances if you're always fearing failure. I think Brene Brown talked a lot about picking up your own bounce, which is have an opportunity to fail. You bounce down to the floor, but pick yourself back up and keep going. And so you can kind of, I think it's endless, and I'll stop talking now on that, but I think it's endless where the things you learn in sport, whether it's you coached yourself or you were a player, translate just incredibly well into the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Paul, you're kind of building the next generation of coaches.
I can pick off of what you said, Kelsey, and communication. I want to broaden it and say the culture of a sports team is critically important. And so when we train our coaches and our women coaches, and She Changes the Game, which is our initiative there, every coach has to be trained on how do you build a positive environment in which every athlete belongs. And if you think about business, the Harvard Business Review constantly is citing that one of the two reasons people stay at a company is because they belong. It's got a positive culture. So the idea of training coaches to create these kinds of positive cultures translates directly to the C-suite. And in terms of strategies, really quickly, one of the ways we do a training called 7 Words or Less, which are simply 7 words, 7 phrases coaches can use. We also do it with businesses now because they're so interested. But let me give you 2 examples. One, the 3-word phrase is I see you. Being sure that coaches see every single player when they enter the field, because kids are coming as our employees with a lot of experiences that day. They have to drop kids off at school. Their kid had a stressful exam. So how do you tell each athlete, I see you, so that they can then concentrate on being part of a team? And another real quick, a 5-word one was, how did you do that? We often congratulate in sports team. We cheer someone who makes a great play, but we never stop and ask them, how did you do that? Share that with the team so we can all learn. And what a marvelous moment for that young athlete to feel a sense of efficacy. Can we imagine if we did that in the workplace too?
I love that.
I agree. Sandi, I got one for you. While Title IX has expanded participation in women's sports, we've actually seen a decline in the number of women in coaching roles. Given the broader shortage of coaches across sports, what structural or systematic changes are needed to ensure women are equitably represented across all levels of coaching, from sports leadership to coaching to ownership and executive management?
Ooh. Now listen, I can stand on my soapbox all day and talk about this, but thank you for that question. First, I would start by creating that pipeline. Like we've already kind of touched on that pipeline, but I want to offer it for the female coaches where they offer like mentorships and even sponsorships towards that mentorship so that we can start. So the pipeline is not just there and just low hanging fruit. Like they're actually building better coaches. Because again, at the end of the day, all we ever really needed was access and opportunity. Once we get that, everything else kind of falls into place. Then as far as like I would also put some of the onus onto the athletic departments and pro franchises to where they can include more women in the talent pool, because a lot of times, like even from seeing, when I got the job at Mount St. Mary's, I was able to see some of the emails from the other candidates. The majority were men. Only one was a woman. And it made me sad because it was like I wanted to hire her as my assistant coach because I'm like, listen, we need to help create these opportunities not only for other people beyond us, I mean, for the future, but also for our friends, like start to bring our friends up in that same realm. And another thing is that I would love to establish programs that prepare the former female athletes into these roles. Again, I know a lot of times we only really talk about the youth and how they need to see it, but you know what? I'm 41 years old. I need to see it too. Like I go to a lot of these coaching tournaments and things to scout for players, and I'm usually the only female there. And I don't like that. I want to change that. I want to see more women in this sport, not just playing it, but actually, in these higher representation. Like that's my goal, is to create the representation for these women to see other women in flag football that are not just players, but in, like you said, the C suites, executives, all of that, the coaching. I'd offer family friendly policies because I know that when I was playing football and my girls were a lot younger, I had to bring them everywhere. And I'm not saying that you have to bring your kids everywhere, but if we created those family friendly policies at these schools or whatever network it is, it would help a lot more women feel like they can do it. You know what I mean? Because then it's like you
It's
have
more
that
accessible.
backing. Yes, exactly, exactly. And then, like you said, they'll stay longer because they already understand that this is a norm for them, and it's a norm for a lot of women. Again, I can keep talking about it, but
Well, I appreciate that, and they also then set the precedent for others to follow. If they can
yes,
see that it can exist and we can handle the breadth of our roles successfully, it increases opportunity for future women to aspire to that as well.
yes. And to highlight the successful women that are in these leadership roles, like truly highlight them, not just a piece here and there, but I mean, really hone in on it. Because think about it, like Kelsey as well as Katie were talking about, when if we mess up, it's like the world knows. If a fellow messes up, in coaching or what have you, it's like it's almost like a dime a dozen. And again, I want to change
Well,
that.
we need more of us so that the few aren't highlighted when those situations happen. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to grow us. We're going to grow opportunities. We're going to start, from girls being introduced to sports, staying in sports, and then having opportunities to get into coaching. And I appreciate all of you all for being here. It does have me really excited about the future and what we can do together to create the next generation of leaders. So thank you all for participating. I appreciate the work you're doing. And thanks again.